So shall I start then? So whenever I'm asking anything, please all of you reply with the chat box. Use the chat box to reply. So once again, good morning to everyone. Myself is Suneel. I have more than 12 years experience on the Linux platform. So I'll be taking your Linux sessions. So before I start with the Linux administration course, let me just ask you some small questions so that I can know how many people are know about the Linux. So depending upon that, I'll go with the depth. Okay. So before I start the session, let me just ask you, what is Linux? So see, when I'm asking you the question, please use the chat box to reply. Don't unmute your mics because it will disturb everybody. So if you know anything about the Linux, please write it in the shortest possible way. Yes. Yes, Linux is an operating system. I got some answers from Nitish, other people also. Yes. So yes, it's an operating system. Yes. The Amir Sheikh is saying yes, more secure. So most of the people in the world are using which operating system? Yes, Venkatesh, it is an operating system just like Windows. Yes. So most of the people in the world are using which operating system? Do you have any idea? Anyone? Most of the people in the world are using which operating system? Yes, Windows. So why people are using the Windows? Why the people are using Windows? Yes, it is having GUI interface, easy to operate, very nice answers. Then why we should discuss then Linux? This course, Linux administration is about which operating system? Yes, this operating system, why we should discuss it? As you said, Windows is most commonly used, widely used operating system. Then why we should use it? Linux? Yes, I'm getting the answer from the Vinay. Yes, it is more secure. So it is a fact. Most of the people in the world are using Windows operating system, but that is true for the user's point of view. Most of the client prefer to use. But our aim is what? Why you are doing this course? What is your aim? Why you want to do this course? Yes, you want to work like a employee or a user or what? Why you need to discuss this Linux? Yes, you want to work like an administrator. Administrator means what? No, no, you want to be not an employee, not a normal user. You want to be an administrator. You want to be an administrator. So this course, Linux administration course, why we should do it? To work like a Linux administrator. So administrator means what? What do you mean by administrator? Before we start the course, we should know this. Why we should learn this? What is the aim? Once we have done this, what is the opportunity we'll get? Yes, because most of the people will do this course to upgrade themselves, or they might be looking for this job. Yes. So you want to work like a normal employee or you want to work like a administrator? Yes. You want to work like a what? Administrator. Yes. So administrator means what? The administrator need to manage what? Network. So generally it is a fact now in the world. You can check from anybody who's working. Most of the servers in the world, I'm saying not all, most of the servers in the world are working on the Linux platform. So suppose if you are working, you got a job in some company, if that servers are, most of the servers in the companies are on the Linux operating system. So who can manage that servers? Who can manage the network? The Linux administrator, yes. So generally as a Linux administrator, we need to configure and manage the servers through which we will control and manage and provide the services to our employees. So administrator means what? Managing the network. So network, in the network, what we have to do as an administrator? We need to configure the servers. So most of the servers in the world are working on Linux platform. So using the Linux operating system, we need to manage our network. and provide the services to our employees who will be working for the company. We need to provide them the services. So for that, if our servers are on, yes, if our servers are on the Linux, you need to have the knowledge on Linux operating system. Yes. So this course will help you to work like a Linux administrator so that you can able to manage your network where your servers are working on the Linux operating system. So most of the servers in the world are working on the Linux. So once you are done with this course, you will be eligible to work like a Linux system administrator. So using this knowledge, we can able to manage our servers. Thereby, we can control and manage all the employees who are working for our company so that they can be provided with the required resources from our server, as well as we can able to control them as per the company policies. So all these things we are going to learn under the Linux administration course, which is about like roughly 1 month. So depending upon like some days we may extend 32 days, sometime 34 maximum. So the sessions will be there on all the days except on Sunday. In some rare cases, if any issue is there, if any health issue or any problem, might be 1 or 2 days holiday. Except that the sessions will be there on all the days. Okay. So on every day the sessions will be there with the theory along with the practical. But this course is designed in a such a way that anybody from any stream can able to do this course. So that is the reason we will discuss first few days all the basic things, then slowly we'll go into the depth of the subject. So now let me start the session. So if somebody asks you what is Linux, you will be saying what you will be saying? Linux is an operating system. So if somebody asks you which type of operating system, then what you will tell? What you will tell? Linux is an which type of operating system? Yes, because what you have said is quite correct. Linux is an operating system, but which type of operating system? Any idea, anyone? If you know, please tell me. So Linux is an, yes, that is the answer I was looking for. Yes, you have to say, if anybody asks you what is Linux, you should say Linux is an open source operating system. Very nice. Yes, Abhay, this is the exact answer you should tell. So now we'll be discussing what is meant by open source. Yes, we'll be discussing about the open source. So we'll slowly come into that aspect. So first we have to begin with what? Operating system. So what do you mean by operating system? Yes. Okay, Sheikh. Let me ask, my voice is clear and audible to others? Because our one of a friend, Amir Sheikh, is saying my voice is not clear. So please tell me if it is not clear, I will just log out and re-log in. It is clear now? Yes, is it clear to everyone? Okay, thanks for your response. Okay, fine. So shall I continue then? Shall I continue then? Yes. Okay, so let me continue. So Linux is an open source operating system. We'll go to that what is meant by open source. So before that, should be knowing that what is meant by operating system, because as an administrator, Linux administrator, we will be using which operating system? A Linux operating system to control and manage our network. So to control and manage the network, we should be first aware about operating system, because we'll be, as an administrator, we'll be using the operating system to manage our network. So operating system means what? Suppose you have purchased today one brand new laptop. So in that laptop there is no OS. Will you able to use that machine? Will you able to use that laptop? Yes, tell me. No, we can't able to use it. Why we cannot use the laptop or the desktop without OS? There might be some reason. No, we are all aware that without OS we can't use. But why? What might be the reason? Yes. So to understand that, yes, very nice answer, Ahmed Sheikh, very nice. Yes, so I can say in simple word like this: I can say in simple word like this. Suppose I know Hindi language and you know Telugu language. So can we able to communicate with each other? Can we able to communicate with each other? I know only Hindi language, you know only Telugu language. So can we able to communicate? We cannot communicate. So now, what is the alternative option? What is the alternative option? I know Hindi language, you know Telugu language. I don't know other than Hindi, you don't know other than Telugu. Then what we can do? How we can communicate? Yes, how we can communicate? Yes, we need one person. Instead of transformer, you can say a third person. So in simple logic, you can use, you know Telugu, I know Hindi. So we cannot understand each other language. So what we have to do? What we have to do? We should take the help of the third person. Yes, translator who understand your language and my language, Hindi as well as Telugu. So that you'll call that person as a what? Mediator or translator. So exactly same thing happens. So the computer or the system understand which language? The computer understand which language? The computer understand which language? Yes, binary language, machine language, which is in the form of zeros and ones. Yes. So as a normal person, as a human being, do we understand this language, zeros and ones? Do we understand these zeros and ones? No. So it is something like that. The machine knows one language, and as a user, you want to use that computer, you know other language. So you don't know each other language. So can we communicate with each other? No, we cannot communicate. So we need what? We need what? A translator, a mediator. Yes. Who is the translator and mediator in the case of us? I'm having one laptop, new laptop. You are also having. In that there is no OS. We cannot able to use it. So what we have to do? First thing we have to install what? Yes, we have to install some OS. So now here, OS is a physical thing or logical thing? Any operating system, you have physical thing or logical thing? Yes, it's a logical thing. Every operating system. So we have different types of operating system in the world, but most commonly used operating systems are Windows operating system. Apart from the Windows, the Linux is there. So the competitor to the Windows is now Linux. And you have also Mac. Earlier we used to have Unix. So these are the commonly used operating system in the world. So most of the people are using Windows OS, but that is suitable for client purpose, user purpose. But the most of the servers in the world, when you want to work like an administrator in the companies, in the organization, most of the company servers, they are on the Linux. So that is the reason we are discussing this course, Linux administration course. So once we do this course, we'll be eligible to work like a Linux administrator. Yes. So operating system is a collection of program. Any operating system is a collection of program. So how to define an operating system? Operating system is a collection of program that acts like a interface between the user and the machine. Okay. So most of the commonly used operating system is Windows. In Windows, we have how many types of OS? How many types of OS? We have two types of OS. Client OS and server OS. So client OS example like Windows 7, 8, 10, now 11. So they are used for the client purpose. So in Windows, they are having server OS also like 2008, 12, 16, 19. So that is used on the server. But if you compare our intention is we want to work on the server OS or client OS. Whether if you want to work like administrator, you need to work on server OS or client OS. Yes, tell me if your purpose, if you want to work on a administrator, you have to work on client OS or server OS. You have to work on server OS, not on the client OS. Server OS. So this Linux administration course will be using server OS or client OS. Our purpose is to work like an administrator. So we should be working on server OS or client OS, server OS. So in that Linux, that server OS is called as what? Enterprise Linux. It is called here what? In Windows you are calling server OS. Here we will call that as a enterprise Linux OS, enterprise operating system. So these codes, yes, enterprise. It is similar to like server OS. So Linux is in which type of operating system? Our focus will be on Linux. Why we should be learning about the Linux? Because most of the companies where we want to work like a administrator, most of the servers in the world are working on Linux platform. So our focus will be on through this course on Linux operating system. So do you know who developed this Linux operating system? Who designed this Linux operating system? Any idea? Anyone? Yes, Vinay, very nice answer. Because most of the people are aware about Windows operating system, which is designed by the Bill Gates. Yes, but very few people are aware about the this person, Linus Torvald. Very nice answer, Vinay, Nitish, and others also. If you don't know, please remember Linux because it is very fast improving or emerging. You can say now the Linux is giving the competition to the Windows. So after the Windows, most of the computer in the world, they are working on Linux. But it is a fact, most of the servers in the world, majority of the servers in the world are working on Linux. So Linux operating system, which is an open source, we'll be discussing that what is meant by open source. Please wait. Before that, we should be clear about operating system. Then we'll go to that open source. So this Linux operating system is designed by Linus Torvald. Yes, he is from the Finland country. Like Bill Gates is still alive. So same way like Linus Torvald person, he is from Finland. He is also alive because when he designed this OS in 1991 to give the people an alternative option, freedom from the license issue. So for that purpose, he designed this. So Windows is designed using the DOS. So same way Linux is designed from, any idea? Linux is designed by Linus Torvald using what? The Linux operating system designed by Linus Torvald using Unix. Yes, very nice. So please remember, Linux operating system is been developed by Linus Torvald using Unix. So what is Unix now? This question might come to your mind. What is Unix? Yes, what is Unix? Unix is Linux? No, Linux is designed from Unix. So what is Unix? Okay, any idea or shall I tell you the answer? Because people may ask you, yes, people may ask you the difference between Linux and Unix. So please remember, Linux is designed from Unix, same like Windows is been designed using the DOS. So Windows operating system is designed from the DOS. Yes, Unix is a parent to the Linux. Very nice answer, Vinay Rao. Yes, so Linux is been designed from Unix. So what is Unix? It is also an operating system. It is also an operating system, but Linux is an which type of operating system? Open source operating system. Whereas the Unix is a command-based operating system. So what you have to say when somebody asks you about the Linux, what is Linux? It is an open source operating system. So same way, if somebody asks what is Unix, so you have to say Unix is an command-based operating system. So before the Windows, most of the people or most of the company were using what? Unix only. At that time, Unix was available. So what is the advantage of Unix? What is the advantage of Unix? It is a very, very good secure OS. But disadvantage in that there is no graphical interface, completely command based. So Unix operating system was designed by which company? Any idea? AT&T, American Telephone and Telegraphs. American Telephone and Telegraph Company designed the Unix operating system under the you can say under the guidance of the Linus, under the, you can say this project was taken up, yes, under the Kem Thompson and Dennis Ritchie. Dennis Ritchie is a founder of the C language. So this gentleman along with the Kem Thompson, these two gentlemen designed the Unix operating system. Yes. So this gentleman, Dennis Ritchie and Kem Thompson, together designed the Unix operating system for the AT&T, American Telephone and Telegraphs, which is a very, very big company still in the US. So they designed this Unix, which completely based on C language. So that's why in that there was no graphical interface, but very, very good security. Virus cannot enter into that and it will not get frequently hang. But there was no graphical interface. But the main drawback in the Unix was Unix is a proprietary based operating system. Unix is what? Unix is which type of operating system? So if somebody asks you what is the disadvantage of Unix, means Unix is a proprietary based operating system. Proprietary based means it is a hardware dependent OS. So who designed this Unix operating system, which is completely command based, no graphical interface, but it is a hardware dependent OS, means the Unix which is designed by the AT&T can be installed only on the AT&T machine. So that's why it is called hardware dependent. So by that they earn initially a lot of money. By seeing that the other bigger companies also design their own OS, like the most popular Unix OS was Solaris. Solaris was designed by the any idea who designed the Solaris? Solaris is a Unix operating system flavor, which is designed by the Sun company. Now the Sun company is taken over by the Oracle. The Oracle is taken over the Sun. Yes, Venkatesh, you are right. But actually the company was Sun who designed the Oracle. So now suppose I want to install Solaris. I need to have which machine only? I need to have install Solaris. Which machine I need to have? Only Sun machine. In Sun machine only that is get installed. Then the IBM developed their own Unix OS with the name AIX. So the IBM company designed Unix the operating system with what name? AIX. So AIX can be get installed on only IBM machine. So suppose I'm having Dell laptop. So can I install the AIX? No, this was the disadvantage with the Unix, and this was the main reason for the downfall of the Unix. So suppose if you are changing the Unix flavor, you have to change the complete hardware. So this disadvantage is exploited by the Bill Gates. So when he designed the Windows OS, he introduced what? In Windows, two things he introduced: graphical interface, and Windows is a hardware independent OS. Means you have Lenovo laptop, I am having HP laptop, another person say suppose having Dell laptop. Can we install the Windows? Yes, because it doesn't require any specific hardware, which was the case in the Unix. So to install the Unix like AIX, you need to have only IBM laptop, IBM machine. If you want to install Solaris, you require only Sun machines. Then the HP also designed their Unix OS, HP UX, which can be installed only on the HP. So if you are changing the OS, Unix OS from one flavor to another, you need to change the complete hardware, which is a very, very expensive affair for any company. So this was the major reason of the downfall of the Unix. So then Windows when came with that dual advantage, graphical interface and hardware independent, most of the people started using Windows only. So then as the Windows people uh, felt that there was no competition to them in the market, they started raising their license key very frequently. So this gentleman, Linus Torvald, using the Unix, he designed the Linux. So Linux, like Windows, is being made hardware independent. So like Windows OS can be installed on any machine, which does not require any specific hardware. So same is now been made by the Linus Torvald to Linux. So Linux is been also, so Linux is designed using Unix, but the disadvantage of the hardware dependency of the Unix is overcome in Linux. So Linux now is being made like Windows, hardware independent. Hardware independent means like you can install Windows OS on any machine. So same way, Linux also can be installed on any machine, whether you have assembled machine or Dell laptop, HP, any machine, Lenovo, you can install. So here I have written some of the Unix flavor like Solaris was installed only on Sun machine, AIX and IBM, HP, HUX. Whereas in the Linux, so Linux is designed using the Unix. So now in Linux, you have different flavors. So you might be knowing some of the flavor name. Yes, I have written some names here. Red Hat, Ubuntu, Kali Linux, SUSE, Debian, Turbo Linux. One Indian name is also there, BOSS, Bharat Operating System Solution. So these are the some of the flavor in Linux. So do you have such flavor in Windows? No. So why we have these flavors in Linux? Why we have these flavors in Linux? Any idea? Yes, any idea why we have this flavor in Linux like Red Hat, Ubuntu, CentOS, Kali Linux, SUSE? Yes, Vinay, you are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. So Linux is an open source. So now we will discuss what is meant by open source. So as we said, any operating system is a collection of program. So operating system consists of collection of program, whether it is Linux, Unix, Windows, any Mac, any OS. It's a collection of program. So whoever designed or developed that program, they will write what? Some program, some source code. So generally, whoever develop any operating system, it will contain the program in the form of source code. So that source code will be not shown to the others. But this gentleman, Linus Torvald, what he did to design this Linux kernel. So the most important part of the Linux operating system or the main program of the Linux operating system is Linux kernel. So this gentleman, Linus Torvald, who designed the Linux kernel, so whatever coding or whatever program he has written to design the Linux kernel, he put it over the internet. He put it over the internet, which anybody not only can access that, but also can modify it. So that is why the Linux is called as open source operating system. So open source means the source code of the Linux kernel, which is designed by the Linus Torvald, is freely available over the internet, which anybody can access it and they can add some features to it. They have to add some applications, some features to it to make their own OS. So that's why there are so many flavors in the Linux. So you can also take the source code. You have to add some you have to compulsory add something, some application to that. Then you can have your complete OS with your name, with your logo. So what is the official logo for Linux operating system? Anybody knows what is the official logo for Linux operating system? Because most of the people are giving very good answers. First time I am seeing most of the people already attending the course. Venera, very nice. Penguin. So please remember this. Like the official logo for the Venera, very nice, very good answer. So, so the official logo for the Windows is 4 square. That is not, that is window. So same way official logo for the Linux is Penguin. Yes, very nice answer. So here we can take the source code of the Linux Torvald, which is available on the internet, but you have to have very good knowledge about the C language. Then you need to add some application. You have to add some application on the Linux kernel to make it your own OS. So that is the reason most of the company, what they have done, they have taken, or all the companies who are using the, or all the major distributor who design the Linux their own flavor, what they have done, all of them, they have taken the source code of the Linus Torvald Linux kernel. They add some application onto them. Then they call them their OS, like the Red Hat company, one of the famous and major operating system distributor in Linux as per the Linux flavor is Red Hat. Now Red Hat company is being taken over by IBM 2 years back, I think. Now the Red Hat is coming there in the market, but under the management of now IBM. So IBM have purchased the Red Hat. So in this, the most famous is Red Hat. So Red Hat came into the Red Hat company. It was a US based company. Now it has been taken over by the IBM. So they came into the market in 1993. So they added some their own features to the Linux kernel, which is designed by Linus Torvalds. So they kept their you can say the their logo as what? Red Hat. Red Hat. So they have kept the name Red Hat. Now, now the company Red Hat has been taken over by the IBM. Now most of the people for their home purpose in India also, but maybe very few people, but most of the other places where Linux is expanding, Ubuntu they are using for their home purpose. So 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 Ubuntu it has been mostly used. Ubuntu is been used mostly for home purpose because it is having most of the graphical features. But most of the servers, as for the Linux, they are working on Red Hat. So we'll be discussing this course through the Red Hat. Okay, because the Red Hat is a very good product and it have lots of features which is be suitable to work in the company environment. So that is the reason most of the servers in the world where the Linux are the servers the company are using, most of them they are operating on Red Hat. So we will be discussing this course through the Red Hat. Okay, so whether I'm clear to you what is meant by open source. So I repeat once again, open source means the source code of the Linux kernel, which is designed by Linus Torvalds, is freely available. So anybody can take that source code. We have to add some features. Then we can have our own OS with our own name and with our own logo. So this feature is there in any other operating system? No. So this makes Linux different from others. So this makes Linux different from others. So what is the main feature which separate the Linux from other operating system? Linux is an open source operating system. Open source means the source code of the Linux operating system is freely available, which anybody can access and they can modify it, add some features to the Linux kernel. Then we can have our own OS, like some of the distributors or some of the companies or vendor have done. So they have taken the Linux source code, they added the features, and they have their own OS with their name, like Red Hat, Ubuntu, Kali Linux. So Kali Linux is suitable for hacking purpose, means not to hack, to prevent the hacking also you can use. SUSE, Debian, Turbo Linux, Boss, these are some of the flavors. So can we learn all the flavor? So as a human being, can you learn all the Linux flavor? Is it possible? No. So no. So you can just you can just be good with one flavor. So you can work on any other flavor because the structure, the concept will be same. Yes, if you are good with one flavor, some commands might be same in other flavor also. Sometimes it may not be supporting. So if you are aware about one particular command in one flavor, you can just Google it, you will get the equivalent command. That's how all the people are working. So the best example you can think is that suppose you know the car driving. If you know the car driving in Maruti 800 or anyone, so can you drive the other one? Yes, you can drive. So it will take some time, maybe 1 or 2 days, to know its some additional features. So fundamental thing remain same. So same here, if you know one of the flavor, you can work on other flavor because the structure will remain same. The structure will remain same. The concept, the structure, the configuration file remain same. So sometimes the commands might be different, but we can use the Google it and we can able to overcome it. Yes. So up to now, whatever I'm saying, it is understandable to everyone, so that I can go to the next. What are the topics which we are going to discuss through this course? I'll tell you, because before you join the course, you should be knowing, no? Already it is there in our website, but I'll just give the overview about what are the topics or content which we are going to discuss through this course, so that you can take your decision to do this course, whether it is beneficial to you or not. So let me just go give you the overview of the topics which we are going to discuss through this Linux course. So this course we have designed in divided into two parts: standalone administration and network administration. So first part will be our standalone administration part. In that we will be starting from all basics, like today we have discussed what is Linux. Then we will be discussing the structure of the Linux. Along with the structure, the file system hierarchy, where exactly what details, what data will be stored. Because if you want to work on the Linux operating system, which is mostly we work through the command base, even though graphical interface is there. So we should know these fundamental things. What is Linux? The structure of the Linux OS. Why the Linux is better in servers. So these things we'll be discussing. So first 3 to 4 days, we will be discussing all these things only. What is Linux? The structure of the Linux, the file system of the Linux, like where exactly what data will be stored, and the basic commands, like we will be doing for first 4 to 5 days. How to create file, directory. So we'll be discussing how to create file with cat command, touch command, vi editor. Yes, how to know how to modify the file, you should know vi editor. Then we will be discussing how to create the single directory, multiple directory, the tree structure directory, which is called parental directory. After that, in all this in basic commands, I'm just giving you the overview. Then we will be discussing how to copy the files from one location to another location. Yes, you should know all these fundamental things, because when we work, we should be all aware about this. So our foundation should be good. So we'll be discussing the absolute path means what, relative path means what. So if you know the file creation, so if somebody asks you how to access this file from relative path or absolute path, what is the difference? So these things. So believe me, once you do this course, you can easily cover, if you have any gap up to like 2 to 3 years, easily you can cover the gap, because that much depth we'll be discussing. 2 to 3 years maximum gap you can cover. So I'll just go through the topics. So we'll be discussing how to copy the files, directory, then how we can rename them, and how to delete them. So this is all we'll be discussing in the basics. Then after that, we will be discussing also, we'll be discussing like to manage your hard disk. So here we will be discussing disk management. So disk means here managing our hard disk. So to manage our hard disk, we should be creating the partition. So how to create the partition? What is the file system we use for formatting? Then in every interview, they will ask you the booting process. So what is the booting process takes place in the Linux? So in detail, we'll be discussing that. We have different run levels in Linux, that also we'll be discussing. Then after that, as an administrator, our routine work is when the employees join into the company, who will create the user account? Administrator. So how we can create the user account, how we can assign the password to them, how we can manage the fields. So we'll in the user detail will be there in etc passwd and shadow file. How to manage this user database file as an administrator, we'll be discussing that in user administration. Then when you have to apply same permission to multiple users, you should know how to create a group, how to add multiple users into the group before you apply the permission. Then how we can make one of the user as group admin. So these things will be discussed in group administration. I'm just giving you the overview. Then we will be discussing if you created the partition, somebody is wasting the space. So to that particular user, we can prevent the user from wasting the server hard disk space by allocating some limited space. So that will be done by using the disk quota. Then we'll be discussing how to apply the permission on the file, basic file permission. So we'll be applying 3 types of permission: basic file permission, advanced file permission, and access control list. All the 3 permissions we'll be discussing. Then to improve the system performance, we have logical memory. Like in Windows, you have in Windows you have a concept called paging. So in Linux the concept is swap. Swap is a logical memory through which we can manage our hard disk or manage our system properly, so that our system performance will improve. So that we will be discussing swap management. It is a logical memory through which we can create the free space in the RAM, physical RAM. Then after that, we'll be discussing the how to monitor what are the tasks running. So that will be discussed in the process management. So under the process management, we will be discussing two basic commands. Basic command which will be used to manage process to manage the process. What are the tasks running in our servers, so we can monitor them with the help of the process management. For that, we have commonly two commands are used, that is the top command and the ps, process status command. So both these commands will be discussing. Then we will be also discussing package management. Means package means collection of applications. So in Red Hat, all the applications will be there in .rpm extension. So we will be discussing how to install the .rpm application using the rpm as well as yum, both the command. So once you know this, you will be knowing the difference between rpm and yum. So if you want to use the yum command, you have to configure yum server. How to configure yum server also we'll discuss. Then after that, on the hard disk, if you just create the partition is not enough. So you should know how to combine the multiple hard disk or multiple partition into one logical space through which we can do the resizing. So that is done in Linux by using the LVM. So we will be discussing. Yes, my voice is not audible. Yes, others, because our friend Amir is again saying voice is not coming. Whether my voice is audible to others, please confirm. No. So can you check from your end, Amir? Because if it is problem from my side, others cannot listen to me. So others are saying, like Nitish is saying, she is able to hear me. So check from your end. So shall I continue? Yes, it was available always, but I think maybe problem from your end. Okay, so I'll continue now. So we'll be discussing LVM. So LVM is a process through which we can combine the multiple hard disk into a single storage space through which we can do the resizing. So very important concept, LVM, very important in real time. So we'll be discussing that also. Along with, we'll be discussing how we can apply the RAID levels. So if you suppose keep everything in single hard disk, if that hard disk get failed, means everything will be lost. So to prevent this, what we will do, to prevent the data loss, even if our hard disk get failed, what we have to do, we have to store the data in multiple hard disks. So that will be done by using the RAID level. So we'll be discussing what are the RAID level. We have 0, 1, 5, and how to configure the RAID on the hard disk, how to configure the RAID, that we will be discussed in RAID level. Okay. Then after that, we'll be discussing how to take the, because administrator job is never completed unless until all jobs are important, but the most important job, first job we have to do is that as an administrator, we need to make sure that company data is never lost. So to prevent the company data from getting lost, what we will be doing, we'll be taking the backup. So we'll be discussing backup, how to take the backup with various tools. Like we'll be discussing how to take the backup of the data by using the users data. Everyday users data changes. So we'll be discussing how to take the backup of the data, users data, by using dump command. Have you heard about the dump command? Then we will be also discussing how to take the backup by using the tar command, normal backup, by normal taking the backup through tar command, and also how to compress the data by using the tar command. So we'll be discussing backup and restore using the most commonly used command is dump. Dump command we will be discussing, and also we'll be discussing how to take the normal backup and compressed backup by compressing with the gunzip tool. Like in Windows you have WinZar, similar to that we have in Linux bunzip tool. So using the gunzip and bunzip, these two tools, so most commonly used is gunzip. So we'll be compressing the data using the gunzip tool, to take the backup using gunzip tool by compressing the data. And we will be also discussing auto scheduling, like when you use the auto scheduling, a particular task should run, whether it is a backup or creation of file or user. You can do the task by scheduling it. So you can put the scheduling job like using the cron tab and AT. So we'll be discussing under the scheduling job how to use the scheduling of the task by using AT, and cron tab. Both these commands will be discussing under the scheduling job. So this is the first part of our course, where we'll be discussing this many topics. And the last part of our course will be network administrator. Means here we'll be discussing how to assign the static IP, how to give the system name to our machine. Yes, how to take the remote desktop using the telnet. Now nobody is using the telnet, but still we are discussing. Better than telnet is what? SSH. So how we can take the remote desktop in Linux using SSH. How to copy the data from one machine to the another machine using the SCP. Then after that, we'll be discussing how to do the data sharing. In, so as an administrator, we need to provide the data to our employees, to our clients. So for that, in Linux, we have 3 servers. So in the network administration part, we will be discussing how to configure the servers. So these are the important servers, basic servers, which will be there in every company. We'll be discussing like how to configure FTP server. So to do the sharing of the data in Linux, we mostly uses these 3 services: FTP server, NFS server, and Samba server. So FTP can transfer the files and directory through uploading and downloading, but it doesn't do the directory. So for sharing of the files and directory in Windows, you use share folder. So in Linux, we will be using NFS. So with NFS, we can do the sharing of files and directory, both. But it will support only Linux to Linux, not other. But most of the servers now in world are on Linux, and most of the client uses Windows. So how to do the sharing from Linux to Windows and Windows to Linux? So for that, we have Samba server. So all these 3 servers will be discussing: FTP server, NFS, and Samba server, as for the sharing of servers are concerned, or sharing of data, I should say, sharing of the data. So we'll be discussing these 3 servers along with DNS server. So what the DNS will do? It will convert or resolve name into IP. So where we will use this? So we'll be discussing what is DNS, how to configure the DNS so that it can convert the name into IP, which will be used in accessing the website with the name. So whenever we want to access the website by name, we have to use what? We will access the website by what? Name, because it is easier. So when we access the website by name, which service should be there? DNS. Without that, we cannot access the website by name. So we'll be discussing how to configure DNS. So that concept we will be using in Apache Web Server. So Web Server is a server through which we can host our website. So as an administrator, our job is what? Hosting our company website. So how to host it? We have to use some service. So what is the service we use in Linux? Apache. So we'll be discussing how to configure the Apache Web Server through which we can host our website. After that, we'll be discussing DHCP server, DHCP, which will assign the IP address dynamically or automatically to all the clients. So without these basic servers, we will never able to work like an administrator in any company. So we'll be discussing in this part how to configure these servers. Okay. So these are the total content which we are going to discuss through this 1 month course. So I hope you got the clarity about what are the topics which we are going to cover through this 1 month Linux administration course. And believe me, once you are done this course, this is a course, foundation course, which will be helpful for you to do the higher courses like VMware or AWS or Azure on the cloud. Without this, it might be not easy for you to understand those concepts if you directly go to the cloud courses. So with this, we are done with today's session. So tomorrow we'll be continuing with what? Tomorrow we'll be continuing with what? First, we'll see why the Linux is being used. We are not going to discuss the shell scripting. Shell scripting is not the part of this. So tomorrow we'll be discussing why the servers are being used in the Linux because of this Linux structure and its file system. So why the Linux is secure, we'll discuss this tomorrow about its structure, and also we'll see the file system of the Linux, where exactly what data will be stored. So this will be our tomorrow session. About you don't worry about this. I have made this file. In that file, I kept all the content. So as soon as you make the payment and registered yourself, and once I get the final list of the people who have joined this course, all these notes, whatever I have collected, I'll be sharing with you on your mail ID. Along with that, I made one practical step file. This file I have made it. So this file, in that all the practical steps from first day to last day, all these are there. So I'll be sharing these two things, the total course content, topic, theory point, as well as the practical. All these things will be there. So as soon as you make the payment and registered yourself, so once I'll be getting the list from my company, DURGASOFT, so I'll be sharing you this file, the theory part as well as the practical file, which will make you do very easily all this practical. See here, I written everything with heading, all the practical from first day to last day, all I put it in one file, in the notepad file. Everything whatever we are discussing, everything I put it in the file. So I'll be sharing this file with you, theory part as well as practical part. So I kept it theory file one separate file, practical one separate file, so that you can easily do it. Okay, see, the people just have some confusion. Real time means all, whether you will do different thing in the real time, all these things only you will do real time. So in the real time, all these things you will not do. Your role will be assigned. So once you do this course, if you get a job as a fresher, it is more than enough. If you go with the job as a 2 to 3 years experience, every company will give that training. So when your role is defined, you will not do all this task. Your role will be given. So that training will be given to you. So once you do this course, you can easily understand that training. See, and this is just a bookish thing, real-time solution. What real-time? When you work on this, if you get the issue, you have to see and do it. Unless until you don't work, real-time issues will be same. First fundamental thing, first you have to analyze the problem, then think about the solution. So when you do the practice, then only that will come. So nobody can make you ready-made expert. That is a wrong thing. Just by working on that, by our experience, we'll get it. There is no ready-made thing like this. This problem will come, this solution only will come. No. There are certain problems which will occur. So while discussing that, we will be discussing if this problem, this is the solution, probability solution. So for that, you should know these things. After that, only you can able to analyze the questions and do it. Okay, Shiva. If it is like that, ready-made means everybody will become administrator. First, our foundation should be good, fundamental should be good. And in the companies, they will tell you this problem, this. So one solution will be not there always. So multiple things. So we have to check one by one. Then some seniors will be there who will be guiding you. So once you do everything, every day same thing, automatically you will become expert. See, when for the field, they will shell scripting will work, will come after your 3 to 5 years experience. Up to 3 year experience, nobody will ask you much about the shell scripting. So some institutes are there who will tell you the shell scripting. Again, in the shell scripting, they'll tell you about the Linux only. They will show one or two script. but without knowing the Linux, you cannot do the shell scripting. Okay, now you can unmute your mic and you can ask your questions or doubts. Yes, anybody, if you have any questions or any doubt, please tell me. See, for the shell scripting, you have to write certain script. For that, Linux administrator knowledge is very basic. If you have, you can go for. Okay, yes, anybody have any questions, any doubt, please, you can unmute your mic and you can speak to me. Or if you are satisfied, if you want me to close the session, I can close it. Yes, please tell me. Do you have any? You can unmute your mic now. Our session is completed. So you can, if you have any question to ask, if any queries is there, you please unmute your mic and you can speak to me. No, it is fine to me means we can close the solution. We can close the session. Yes, please. I'm
Sir,
waiting for
like,
you.
sir, like we got that we'll get the recordings, like, so it is
Yes,
for lifetime or for how long? How long we can access the same?
see, as far I know, it is like up to 1 year. Every day
Okay.
you'll be getting the recording. Yes,
Okay, sir.
but it will be up to 1 year.
Okay.
Okay. Yes, anybody, any other question, or can I close the session? See, I told you for easily you can cover this up to 3 years. 5 years means you need to go a little bit more depth, because they will ask you in 5 years more about the troubleshooting and some. If you have that, then you need to cover that with some courses like either AWS or with the VMware, like that. Some course you have to do to cover that. But as for me, this Linux course can easily cover up to 2 to 3 years gap, Shiva. Yes, anybody, any other question or any doubt, or can I close the session? Please tell me. I think Shiva, I already answer your question. Yes, you can go for some. Okay, you can go for additional courses like AWS to cover the 5 years. Okay. Yes, once you are done with this course, you can write the Red Hat certification. So just give me a minute, I'll connect the batch. Okay. Yes, tomorrow same timing, 9:30. Yes. So can I close the session now? Yes. Shall I close the session? Okay, I'm closing the session. See you tomorrow.